is Peru's engine of industry, and it's enabled the country to make huge economic strides in the past decade. It has experienced a growth average of more than 6% a year since 2002, but it has also sparked controversy. There are growing concerns that its mining practices cause contamination and don't generate sustainable development for those who live around it. Correspondent Dan Collyns takes a hard look at the industry to show us how this rich natural resource is also the subject of deep debate.
Demonstrators in Lima calling for a new president. The effect of a weakened world economy on Peru's mineral exports, or a whole range of demands and complaints. There were just a few miners at this march in the Peruvian capital, but many argue that mining is at the heart of rising public discontent.
The drop in international commodity prices has a direct effect on the mining royalties received by millions of Peruvians across the country. If the boom in Peru is coming to an end, we're going to be seeing a lot more riot police on the streets of Lima.
Every day, tens of thousands of tons of copper ore, zinc, lead, gold and silver leave the capital's Callao port, the raw materials that fueled the Peruvian boom for more than a decade. But in the first 6 months of this year, mineral shipments were down by 12%. Industry insiders say some $22 billion of mining projects aren't getting launched fast enough to keep Peru's economy ticking along at its usual velocity, something President Ollanta Humala didn't plan for.
He thought that postponing decisions, postponing the beginning of projects was okay and nothing was going to happen. Well, 2 years down the road, he understands that he needs investment because the Peruvian economy has been freezing down since March of this year. And if we grow at 4.8 by the end of this year, it will be very good.
It's a more than respectable growth rate, but Peru's got used to growing at an average of 6.4% during the past decade. While some say the bust is just around the corner, others say the boom is good for a few miles yet.
We're still in a cycle of relatively good prices. I mean, this drop is sort of temporary and brief. We still have a window of opportunity in which not only are prices going to remain healthy, but also production is coming online. It's not just an issue of prices, it's also an issue of new production. So we say there's another 10 to 15 years of healthy growth of the mining sector and therefore public revenues generated by such.
But many in Peru question whether mining, for all the big capital it attracts, benefits the communities around it. Pollution and competition for water have generated hundreds of conflicts and derailed dozens of mining projects. Even the biggest potential investment in the country's history, the $2.2 billion Conga gold mine, couldn't get off the ground due to local opposition. But some mining executives are taking the unpopular path of shaking up the status quo. Diego Benavides, president of Minera IRL, is the first to make the community around a mining concession shareholders in its profits.
What I earned was a lot of enemies. It was not easy to impose a formula like this, whereas you have a lot of private mining going in Peru. But we had very clear that if you want to develop mining in Peru, you have to have a partnership. In this case, this 5% is a 5% shareholding, and they have the same rights as any shareholder, in the goods and in the bad moments.
Minera IRL's existing Corihuarmi mine also leads the pack in good community relations, as evidenced by local resident MELESIO QUISPE.
The company is helping by training the women to improve their textiles. It's planting trees and plants, and the latest help they've given us is to build a hotel in our village. We, the men, take it in turns to work here at the mine.
QUISPE earns more than $400 a month to turn this mining tailing back into pasture. It's a small fortune in his village. Meanwhile, some 5 kilometers above sea level, miners use non-polluting technology to get gold out of the ground. It's not Peru's biggest, nor its most profitable mine, but it runs 24/7, showing that there's a cost benefit to keeping the locals on side. The business of getting minerals out of the ground
runs as deep in Peru's history as the seams of metal in its mountains. But Peru's relationship with mining is full of paradoxes. The industry, which provides 60% of Peru's exports, provides employment for just 1% of its workforce.
It's the subject of much debate.
An excessive dependence on mining is not healthy for our economy, when the state should be worrying about diversifying the economy and thus avoiding all the anxiety caused by the recent drop in commodity prices, which caused a big commotion here, a cut in mining royalties and social programs.
Peru's history is full of booms and busts. Providing the raw materials that the world needs right now is never going to provide long-term stability.
Proyectos que están en desarrollo.
For projects which are under development with approved budgets, like Toromocho, like Las Bambas, and Cerro Verde, there's no reason why there should be any delay. We are predicting that we will more than double our copper output from 1.8 million tons to 2.8 million tons.
En base a las producciones que van a entrar.
How that revenue is invested, building infrastructure, tackling poverty, improving education will be key.
Peru has one of the worst public education systems in all of Latin America. We know what needs to be done. There's a significant amount of investment and political will that has to go into improving education. And if that isn't done now, thinking about the long term, the labor force and the alternative economic activities that we would like to see are not going to take place. I mean, we're going to have a population that's not capable of different kinds of entrepreneurial activity.
For now, no other sector is as productive or can generate as much income as mining. Used the right way, the industry could provide Peru with a panacea for its ills and serve as its salvation for the future.